Dana Abbott here, and welcome to another Signature Series tutorial by Century Martial Arts. This tutorial will help you choose what is the best sword for you. Century handles 3 swords. These are shinkens. You'd know them as live blades or very, very sharp steel swords. We have 3 of them. There is also one Iaito, a dull metal alloy sword, but today we're just working with these 3 swords. When you look at a sword here, we have 3 different sizes. We have the wakizashi, we have the classic katana, and a cutting XL katana, which is a little wider blade. Out of these 3 blades here, we'll determine which one will work best for you at this time. First, when you get your sword, you'll receive it in a box like wakizashi or the classical size or the cutting size. Open up the box and let's pull out the sword. What you do is you lift up the box, which is a no-brainer, and you notice the sword is inside the box and is fairly well taped from the shipping. Get yourself a pair of scissors or a knife and just cut around the edges, making sure you don't cut into the sword itself or the blade or the handle or any of those. So cut around the edges a little bit here, just like that, and then just across the top there to allow the tape to open so you can take your sword out. And let me cut these right here. Now I'm able to take the sword out of the box. As you see, when you first open your sword, it's going to be wrapped in plastic, and you're going to have a lot of these little white things in here that keep it from rusting and getting a little wet. So let's pull all that out and just throw that on the side. So after you've opened up one of the swords or your sword, it looks like this in its bag. Of course, you take the bag off. And you pull this down, and you can see that there is a very nice Signature Series sword. This is just one of the 3. Now let me open up the other ones and show you what they look like. After you've opened up the box and you've taken out your sword, let's examine either the wakizashi, the XL blade, or the classical blade. After you pull it out of the box, you're going to have a sleeve on top here just to keep the handle a little extra clean and dust-free. I want you to examine the blade. Sitting in a position like this or standing up, I'd like you to pull the saya or the sheath from the blade and bring the saya down to the side, and then look at the blade and look at all the features it has to offer, like a good hamon, and the mune looks nice and the sodi is nice. I'll be explaining this in a couple of moments. First is first. What I'd like you to look at is the blade here. The blade is 27¼ inches in length. This blade cuts very, very well. It is nicely designed for anybody's hand, tall or short, doesn't matter. I'd like you also to look at the kisaki, the tip. It's an average kisaki. The back of the blade, called the mune, it is just thick enough to cut well, but not too thick where the weight of the blade is too heavy. If you look at the edge, the ha, it means tooth, but the edge is what they call the ha, and the hamon, which is the temper point. If you notice, the curve of the blade is slight, not too deep, not too straight. Over here is the hilt, which we call a tsuba. And of course, we have the handle, which is called a tsuka. On the tsuka, you're going to see my family's crest. It is a crest that is hundreds of years old from Yokohama. It's a part of my wife's family's crests. From this crest here, if you look at the back of the sword, you also see the crest there, which is 3 circles inside of a circle called Wani Mitsunoboshi. This handle is made out of cotton, black cotton. So when you do use the handle, it will move well into your hands. Moreover, if you do start sweating and it does get a little damp, it won't break apart. The tsuba here has a wave on it, and the wave puts out the energy. We always like a wave. We always like a little bit of nature in the blade. And the reason why is these go back hundreds of years, and so does the thought process. For example, on the side, you'll be seeing these little bitty golden figures, which were designed from the cherry blossom tree. This sword has good weight. It casts well. Moreover, you can immediately start test cutting with it now. Now, for some reason, if you like this sword and you don't want to test cut with it, but you want to get used to it, just get an emery cloth and lightly go over the edge of the blade to dull it a tad. Draw it about 8,000 or 10,000 times, and then get a stone and put the edge back on again. By then, you won't have fear of the blade half as much. When you first get your blade, it's going to come in this. And this is a sheath, or a saya in Japanese. You're going to see some string up here. And the string looks very, very nice when you mount it, when it's mounted here. But this has a little bit more purpose than just being a fancy condiment to the saya. This will help you keep the sword inside the sheath when you're not using it. This is called a sageo. A lot of the times, you just take and you just pull it this way, and then you pull it this way, and then unravel it, which might take a minute or two. Take your time. And then after you unravel it, and remember, the string won't be that straight yet because it has been knotted up for some time. But after you're done stringing it through, you're going to notice that the sageo is about this long, and it like this. What you'll want to do is you'll want to come in about the last 15-20% of it and just put it in a nice square knot in there and pull it through. Just like that. So now we have this, has a nice knot into it, it pulls in well, and we're going to use it a little differently. And that is, when we take the sword, we put it back onto the sheath, we wrap it around the tsuba, and we pull it in this way. Round it over and over again, just making sure that this is tight. And then at the last second, you put through a loop here like this for easy access and easy pull. Now, the sageo has become a useful tool for the sword. So instead of staring at it up on top of the mantle, now the sword will stay inside the sheath. So when you put it away into its bag, or if you put it away into its box or whatever, and you have a tendency to pull it out, the sword and the sheath will come out together, offering you a much more safety factor. Plus, you don't want to put your hand into the bag and have it been bit by a sword blade. That's no fun at all. After you've looked at your blade, you've examined it, you've taken the sageo, you've taken this and you've adjusted it and your sword's out. Now what you probably need to do is apply a little oil. Here in Arizona, you won't see too much rust, but in Japan or places where it's very, very wet, a lot of humidity, you'll see rust coming up on the blade pretty easy. To alleviate that is simple. Keep it well oiled. What type of oil should you use? Well, there's lots of different oils you can, and there's different ones that different manufacturers recommend. I have been using for the last 30 years this, clove oil. Clove oil works very well, and it works on the blade nicely, and it also has a nice smell and viscosity to it, so you can draw a long time. First thing you do is take just a couple of drops of the oil. You apply the oil into a small little cloth, And then after you've put several drops, maybe 10 or 15, then take the sword and just rub it up like this. Another couple of times to keep a little oil on the blade, which will keep the rust away. After you've done that, now bring the blade back up here. Again, put it around the saya like you did. I'm showing this twice so you can attempt to do this. And it's very important that you tie this into a good knot that holds it in very, very well. Now we have a sword that's ready to go. It's already been oiled. If you do a lot of iaido and you do a lot of sword drawing, make sure that about every 15 or 20 draws, you re-oil the blade. And the reason why is a lot of times your fingers run across the back side of the blade. And if it's tight and it's pulling, you'll pull on the skin. But if the viscosity is good and the oil is there, you'll be able to glide the sword over your hand, over the koiguchi, the mouth of the saya or sheath, and then put away the blade and sheath it, or pull the blade and put away the blade and pull the blade and put away the blade. And after, again, about 15, 20 times, the blade will start feeling a little dry, and then again, just oil it again. It's that simple. Just remember one factor. Do this when you're sane and sober. Do this with lots of care. And the reason why is one little mistake has months of rehabilitation.